All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in again through our through the Bible series teaching. I'm Chuck Rhein with Calvary St. Joe, and we're in the book of Zechariah today, who's my favorite of the minor prophets. And there's a lot in Zechariah, a lot more than I could even begin to cover in this short amount of time. I always enjoyed chapter 3. It's one of my favorite parts of Zechariah, and it is a appearance of Satan where he doesn't actually speak. I always find that interesting. In Zechariah chapter 3, verse 1, Zechariah, by the way, is getting visions from God. And so he says in 3:1, "Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord," and that may possibly be a type of Christ or a model, a shadow of Christ in the Old Testament, "and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him." And this is perfectly consistent with Satan's character and nature. Revelation tells us that he's the accuser of the brethren. And so verse 2, it says, "The Lord said to Satan," and this is very similar to Jude 9, "The Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire?" Now, I personally love the book of Jude. I think it's awesome. I think it's very unique in the Bible. But it says in there, in regards to communication with Satan, that Michael was not to bring a reviling accusation against him, but he said, "The Lord rebuke you." And what I take away from that is that I always keep the Lord between me and the devil, okay? So what's going on here is that this is a national perspective. We're talking about the nation here, and Zechariah, again, is one of the post-exile prophets, the last three are. And so what's going on here is that the language is very interesting. It says, in regards to Joshua, is not this a brand plucked from the fire? And a brand would be a piece of wood that's been charred, like in a campfire, and if it's left there, then it's going to disintegrate, it's going to break apart. But this here, in this context, it's that piece of wood that's been plucked, it's been removed before it can be destroyed. And so Charles Spurgeon noted that this rebuke comes at the right season, that when Satan accuses, Christ pleads. And so we should always battle with the Lord's authority. We don't fight for victory, we fight from the place of victory. And so verse 3, "Now Joshua is standing before the angel clothed with filthy garments," and I see in that a model of our righteousness before God. And verse 4, "The angel said to those who were standing before him, 'Remove the filthy garments from him.' And to him he said, 'Behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestments.' And I said, 'Let them put a clean turban on his head.' And so they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments, and the angel of the Lord was standing by." And you and I don't want to go to God with our righteousness. Read that, it says filthy rags is what we read in the Old Testament in Isaiah. And so before the enemy, the accuser of the brethren, can speak against somebody who's in service to the Lord, and that's Joshua, the high priest, somebody who's in the ministry, the service of the Lord, he gets imputed righteousness from God, and his clothing is changed. And so, there is a lot in the book of Zechariah. There's a lot that's in the book of Revelation. It's a great companion book to read with Revelation. A lot of the imagery is very similar. I'm always reminded of the last chapter of Zechariah in verse 16, chapter 14, when it says that everybody who survives of all the nations that have come against Israel shall go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Booths. And you can look in Leviticus 23:34 for a reference to that. But it is, as I understand it, the one Jewish feast that we will keep throughout all time and eternity, if you will, celebrating how God sustained the children of Israel in the wilderness. So, I hope that you've got some extra time in this season of your life If so, check out Zechariah. It's an amazing book. There's a lot there, too much that I could even cover in the short amount of time. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in Malachi next time.